I'm going to be speaking this morning, and I do feel this topic is one that hopefully helps to combat what I think is a bit of an epidemic in a country like ours. I think if we can get our heads around this and get involved with this and learn to live in this way, it can be an answer to this particular epidemic. And it's an epidemic which it's called individualization. We live in a country which is very individual. We live in a country where we now like to do things on our own more and more. The culture has shifted in this country from one of more community-based to one of more individualism. And it plays itself out in lots of different ways, from the invention of things such as noise-cancelling headphones, which, by the way, are winning. If you've got anyone young in your house and you want to block them out, great invention. However, it means we can't hear anyone. And so we're creating a culture of individualism. Also, if you noticed, houses are built differently. Years ago, houses were built with a lounge at the front, where you could see out the window and see if someone was approaching your house, and because you'd be happy to see them. Now, lounges are built at the back, so that no one has to know you're there. Have you noticed? There's a shift, there's a change. Culture has changed. We like to try and be on our own now. Well, you know, if you are someone who's still got a lounge at the front, you've got a choice to make if you see someone coming down your driveway. Do you greet them, or do you find the closest thing you can hide behind? What do you do? We've got this real individualization problem in a country like ours. But what it's then led to is a lot of loneliness. What it's left to is a lot of people on their own. Sometimes you might even live with other people in the same house and you are still lonely because of the individual nature that seems to be coming out in people today. And it's a real problem. You know, it's why for us as a church, I love the fact one of our values is relationship, because we want everyone to be in relationship with other people. You know, I heard recently, I was listening recently, I can't remember who it was to, and they said, isn't it possible to be a Christian without going to church? And the answer is yes, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's not easy. God didn't design Christianity to be lots of individual people who weren't connected. God, in his wisdom, which hopefully you'll agree is better than mine and yours, decided that we need to be connected, we need to be in relationship with each other. Because it's really hard to be a Christian on your own. We need people. And it's amazing how this is another one of those sort of counter-cultural things of the Bible, that he says, don't be on your own, you need to be together. You need each other. You do. You may just think, oh, it's fine, you'll survive, you'll be all right. But I tell you what, it's harder without a group of people supporting you, encouraging you. And I really feel that actually we've got a moment. And also as we were worshipping, he reminded me of that prophecy in the book of Ezekiel about the valley of dry bones. You might have been sat here this morning thinking, these people, they're hearing God, or God has done stuff in their life. He's not done anything for me. He's not broken through in some way. But this came to me where he says this in Ezekiel 37. He asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Then he said to them, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I really felt as we were worshipping, there's a moment of God is wanting to breathe his breath into some dry bones in this place. And it may be that you're dry in the sense of you've walked away from God in some way recently and you've not been following him. It may be you've not yet found your place and you feel empty. It may be God has not broken through in some way. I don't know what it might be, but I just felt there's a moment of God is actually saying, no, I want to attach you to other people. I want to breathe life into you, and I want to make you come back to life this morning. And so that might be you this morning. That might resonate with you. If that's you, just hear God may be speaking to you today. I don't know, but I want to pray with you at the end if that's you. But the passage I've put out for today is 1 Peter 4, 7 to 11. I'm just going to read that, and then we're going to think around that and think how maybe this helps us in the battle against individualization and isolation, which then leads to ultimately loneliness. It says this in 1 Peter 4, 7 to 11. It says, "The end of all things is near. Therefore, be alert and of sober mind so you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen." You see, now, this is a passage which, and we do this a lot now in our world. We read the Bible as individuals, which isn't wrong in a sense, because we are individual. However, it was written to a community. And so when we look to apply certain things of the Bible and look to figure out how it works out in our lives, we've got to do it together as community. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense in some places. And so that's why I think this is such a good picture for us to combat things like individualism. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. The reality is, it doesn't say, above all, love yourself and stay away from everyone else. No, we've got to love each other. It's right there. You can't do that if you're not with other people. It's really hard. Sometimes you might think the most loving thing is to stay away, but I tell you what, we need each other. I need you, you need me. Believe it or not, we do. And the great thing is, what it doesn't say here is, I know I've met loads and loads of people down the years who've been hurt by the church. And I'm sorry for that. The church is never meant to be a place that hurts people. The church is never meant to be a place where, things are said that, let's face it, sometimes are very unchristian. It is meant to be a place where we can love each other deeply. However, we've got to remember love covers over a multitude of sins. It also doesn't tell us the church is going to be a place that's perfect. It's still going to be a place where there is sin. And there's still going to be a place where there's going to be relationships that need working on, that can sometimes get broken or damaged. But love can cover over a multitude of sins. It doesn't mean that we allow people to go on still sinning and doing this stuff that's bad behaviour. The Bible tells us in other places, if that's the case, you should have nothing more to do with those people. But it does tell us the church is not going to be a perfect place of people who think just like you, act like you. So don't expect that to be the case. You've got to love each other deeply. We're in this series on grace at the moment. And I think one of the best ways to grow in grace is to be around people who are not like you. I tell you what, it's one of the most challenging things in the world. The easiest thing in the world is to surround yourself with people who think exactly the same as you. Because you'll never have any problems. Because you do everything the same way. You do everything that they would think, that you would think. It would just never have any problems. But I don't think that's the way the church is called to be. We're called to be different people from different backgrounds who come together somehow and learn to love each other deeply. And by that love, that can cover over a multitude of sins. And so the first thing we need to pick up with this is actually, it's important that we have each other. We need each other. When you're not here on a Sunday, I miss you. Believe it or not. I do, because I need you. I need your relationship, and hopefully you need my relationship. We're all joined together. So prioritise being together, and let's not fall into this individual trap. But then this passage goes on, and I love it. It says, offer hospitality, but he doesn't stop there, to one another without grumbling. How many of you, if I said to you, offer hospitality to someone, you're kidding? Really? Yeah, offer hospitality. And when I say hospitality, it's one of those words that we think means, we get a bit confused, if I'm honest with you, when it comes to hospitality. I think a lot of people in church confuse hospitality with entertaining. Well, entertaining means you've got to put on a 3-course meal for someone, and it's got to be perfect. You've got to get your best china out. You've got to have your best manners. Hospitality doesn't mean that. Hospitality literally means opening your door and inviting someone in. That's what it means. Hospitality doesn't mean you need to have hired a cleaner the week before so your house looks like a show home. That is not what hospitality means. That's entertaining. Hospitality is inviting people in without grumbling. Because if we set the bar too high and think we've got to do all those things such as have the most amazing house just to have someone over, we're not going to see hospitality in the church. Because we notice every mark on our floor, every mark someone else in our house has made. We realize we can't actually cook, and we're never going to have anyone over. But that is not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is literally to have an open door to have people in. And also the challenge is here is when you offer hospitality in this way, it's not just to have people over that you already know and already know that you're a little bit messy. You know, we once had this sign in our house, which I made Sarah take down. It said, "Please excuse the mess, kids live here." But the trouble was, whenever anyone came around our house, it was immaculate. I was like, that is the most pathetic sign in the world. You either take the sign down or leave the mess. One of the two. And so the sign came down. Because she likes to be tidy. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's not what your house is, don't panic. The amount of times I come around people's houses and they're apologising, I'm like, you should see my house. You do not need to apologise for what is everywhere. Like Sarah's away at the moment. She's been away with a friend for a 40th birthday overnight. She is going to be a little shocked when she comes home later today. Pray for me. Listen, the way I look at it is everyone is still alive who she left, okay? But it's a little messy, and that's okay, okay? In my mind, maybe not in her mind. But offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. I want to encourage you to open your doors to people, and particularly to people you don't know that well yet. Just come around for a cup of tea. It doesn't need to be tricky. You don't need to bake a cake. Just come on in. Even water will do sometimes, and a seat. It can be really easy. We've made hospitality really tricky so that it doesn't happen. But it doesn't need to be that way. Sometimes someone is just lonely and just wants to chat. Let's not set the bar saying we've got to provide the best meal. Let's set the bar low and say it's more about being together than it is about what we provide. They're going to remember your company rather than your menu more. So let's get our doors open. Even today, when we get to having a cup of tea and stuff later today, little challenge for you, invite someone over who's never been over before. Oh, now you're down, aren't you? Invite someone over. Even today, it's going to be nice weather. Why not today? But do it. And don't sit there and think, well, I should be invited to someone else's house. No, it works both ways. You invite someone else. We need each other. And do it without grumbling. Don't grumble at me. But then it carries on in this passage. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very word of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. The church is a funny thing. It really is. When people think of the church, they think of all sorts of different things. When I think of the church, I think of a group of people who in probably no other setting would be together because we're different, but come together because of Jesus. But when I think of the church, I think of a group of people who need each other because without each other, they struggle. The church can't function without each other. We need to serve. As that very passage says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others. I think we've fallen into the trap in the church of the person who's paid, i.e. me, does all the work because they're paid. It's their job, right? Wrong. I've said it many times and I'll say it again. My job is to equip the saints for the works of service. My job is not to do all the works of service for the saints. The reality is, following Jesus, being part of a church, means each of us should use whatever gift we have to serve others. We need each other. If you want me to do all the work, that's great, but we won't do very much because I can't do it all. There are so many amazing people in this church who do things. Now, what I want to, as a bit of a disclaimer, when we talk about serving in the church, the idea of this message is it's not a guilt message, and it's not to make people who are already serving loads do even more. That's not the aim of this. They've said this for years. They said they reckon 20% of the people do 80% of the work in the church. Which means we've got 80% of people still to harness. Because what I don't want to do is make 20% of people even busier till they break. Because what happens when they break? Something falls down in church life, people grumble, but then don't do anything about it apart from grumbling. And I get to hear all about it. It takes all of us. Every single one of us. You might be sat here going, well, surely not me. Well, according to Peter, each of you. Oh, that does include you. So that means you've got to learn where you fit within a local church. It also means if you're not here within the local church, you are missed. One of my favourite pictures is that in 1 Corinthians, where they talk about this sort of the church as a body. It says in 1 Corinthians 12, just as a body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For all were baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free. And we were all given from one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. The body, the church, we are made up together. Think about your body. It's made up of many different parts which have many different things that it does. Some parts might seem more useful than others, but if a part was missing, you would notice. If your big toe was missing, you would notice. Why? You'd fall over an awful lot. It might not be the most glamorous thing in the world, your big toe, even if you do paint your toenail. But if it's missing, you would notice, right? Same as your thumb. If your thumb was to disappear, you would really notice. You wouldn't be able to pick up things like knives and forks, or maybe a pen and write. It would be really obvious that it was missing, because there would be something you wouldn't be able to do. Now, if the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. The whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? Just as he wanted them to be. I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honourable we treat with special honour. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty. While our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together. See, God has knitted this thing called the church together. And every single one is needed. Without you, something is missing. You may not realise that, but it is the case. I notice it because if someone's not here who maybe does something normally, I might have to do it, and that's okay. But it might mean that I can't function as I need to function. Every single one of you is needed in the church. But we need to also recognise that every single one of us is different. We don't all come the same. We're not the same. And thank God for that. You wouldn't want to be me. I might not want to be you. We're different. We bring different gifts. But God has put this together. And as God puts this together, he seems to bring different parts which complement each other or can do things that others can't. I know that I have a whole number of weaknesses. I am super grateful for someone like Bex, who sits in the office doing the admin, because when she is not there, like the past week, and she's been on holiday, very well-deserved holiday for working with me, I notice it, because I am not good at admin. I can do it, but it takes me a lot longer than it would take Bex to do. I'm amazed no one has commented on any problems in the newsletter that went out this week for those that receive it. Because normally there are when I do it. Maybe there aren't. Maybe I got away with it this time. But we need each other. We all bring different gifts. We're all part of the body. But we need to realize we're not all the same as anyone else. You might have felt it before. You're part of a church, but you feel inferior to others. Oh, they can do that. I can't do that. But maybe that's not your gift. Oh, but they get to be up on the stage. Yeah, but maybe your gift is serving behind the scenes. And that's okay. What did it say? The parts that we think are less honourable, we treat with special honour. You might not see them. I might treat some of these parts with special honour because I see some of the work they do. You never see the work that goes on in maintenance. I see what George and Greg do. You never see it. You just assume the building's going to work when you come in. I see what George and Greg do to make things work. You might think, wow, isn't it nice? The chairs are all laid out. But you don't see how that happens. I lay out 130-ish chairs every week and put them away as well at the end. You don't see that. There are things that happen in the life of the church that you don't know about. But people give up their time and they serve. And there are amazing things in this church. But what I want to encourage you with, and I think 1 Corinthians 12, 13, 14 speak to this. We're not going to go through it all now. But what you get in this passage in 1 Corinthians 12, 13, 14 is in the middle, 1 Corinthians 13, you get these verses that always come out at weddings. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. Great verses. However, when read in their context of the whole Bible, chapter 12 talks about the church and spiritual gifts. Chapter 4 talks about spiritual gifts and order in worship. And love is in the middle. The writer here, Paul, seems to be showing us that actually, for the church, you need to be seeing everyone working together. You want to be seeing spiritual gifts present. You want to see great order in your worship. And you want to base it all around love, because love is at the center of all things. He's showing us a pattern of what Peter is picking up here as well. That love covers over a multitude of sins. You know, if you, as I said, if you ever want to grow in grace in your life, you serve on a team in a church. You get put with people who are not like you and do things a different way to you. That'll refine you. It will. You get some people who just moan about others. Oh, they always tell me to do it this way. Oh, I don't like the way they do it. And you get others who go, you know what? I'm going to let this knock off my hard edges and help refine me as a person. Serving is one of the greatest ways of growing in grace there is. If you want to grow, get involved. Find your part in the body. Even if you're saying to me right now, I don't know where my part in the body is. I don't know how I fit. I don't know what my gifting is. Let's have a conversation. Sometimes people as well come along and say, well, this is my gift. I should be doing this. At which point as leader, I might say, well, actually, that's nice. Let's start off here. Let's not jump too many rows ahead. Let's start your gift off small. You know, I've met people before who've, you know, they become a Christian one week and the next week, I should be on that stage preaching. Love your enthusiasm. Hang on. Hang on. Let's just calm down. Because the Bible also tells us to have a sober assessment of ourselves. Which means, yeah, we all need to find our part. But let's not promote ourselves too high too quickly. Let's see where we fit in the body. And then you soon find out when someone's heart really is. Well, okay, before we start letting you up on the stage do some stuff, how about you help me move the chairs every week? I don't want to do that. I should be... Oh, hey, now we found where your heart's at. So let's find places. And to give you an example of some places where serving, where people give up time every week to help people. Worship. Most weeks we have a worship band. I don't hire them in, despite the fact they're all very, very good. They give up their time. They get here at 8:30 when you're crawling out of bed and start worshipping. Refreshments. You know those teas and coffees you enjoy after the service? Not a catering company. They give up their time and put on refreshments. You see how quiet it is in here right now? We have a creche team and a kids work team who look after our kids every week and try and show them something of Jesus. They give up that time to do that. They find their place in the body. We've got the tech team. People who sit at the back, help with the sound and the visuals that you use to sing the songs every week and to hear the worship. They give up their time. The welcome team. People who stood by the front doors welcoming you as you're coming in. Little Pines, our midweek group for toddlers. They give up almost too much time. Charlie's always in the building. I have joked that she lives here a number of times, and Charlie and Heather are often in the week setting stuff up, and the group on Wednesday morning. Give up that time. Our youth work doesn't just happen. Get set up. Great fun this week. We had an Easter egg hunt. Kids everywhere. It was amazing. Mighty Pines. You've heard Lindsay talk about it this morning. Doesn't just happen. People give up their time. That serve those over 60s, and it's growing. Pastoral care. We have a pastoral care team of people who do go out and have cups of tea and do look after and do care for. We've got life group leaders. You know, they invite people into their home week on week on week and unpick what they hear on a Sunday. We've got a new life group just about to be launched as well. We've got our maintenance guys. I say guys only because there's no ladies on the team. You can be a maintenance lady as well. That's fine, if that's your thing. We've got all these teams that do stuff. But have you noticed that recently the church has been getting a little busier? Anyone else notice that? What happens is when the church gets busier, it means we need more people to step up. It now means, I used to put out just over 100 chairs. I now put out 133 chairs every week. You can count them up if you want. I think my number's correct. I do it every week, but maybe we're getting to the point where I need a setting up team to help me with that. So it's not me doing it every week and then putting them away again. Maybe. Maybe you've noticed, because it's been getting a little busier, it's taking you longer to get your cup of tea after the service and the queue's out of the corridor. What's the answer? To grumble? Or put your hand up? I'm not doing anything yet. I can help with that. There's kids everywhere. But there are some weeks where we don't have enough team because they serve so much. They might be in the service more. Do you grumble the kids are here? Or think, I could be part of the solution. Maybe that's my part in the body. There are weeks where we have the video-led worship. Once again, I'm not coming to church this week. No live musicians. Well, maybe there's parts of the body we've not yet found who can help boost the worship team. As I say, the idea behind this is not to flog people who are already doing stuff. The aim is not to go, Amy, why aren't you up here every single week leading worship? That's not the aim. Part of the body means we all need to play our part. Not make those that are busy already busier. So I want you to see out of this that God is building a church. And the great news is we get to be a part of it. If you're expecting me to do all the work, we're not going to go very far. But if you realise we're all a body and we all have a part to play, and there is no retirement in that until he calls us home one day, then it'll be amazing to see what God does in this church. I am so, so grateful for all those that already give up so much of their time to serve this church in so many ways. And I want you to know, even if no one else sees, it does not go unnoticed. I see it. God sees it. And I value you and I appreciate you. But I also know if God is going to take us to where I believe he is calling us, he is going to need some more people to step up, or maybe step out into new places they've never been before to find their place to lead this church on.